Coming up on this edition of Two Right Turns, a Clemson football podcast, recruiting, retention, and rev share, and so much more. We get an inside look at Clemson's player personnel department with General Manager Jordan Sorrells and Director of Player Acquisition and Evaluation Kevin Kelly. The next episode of Two Right Turns starts now.
They take those two right turns, and when they make the final turn, they can begin to hear the crowd and the noise of the open end of the stadium.
Here it is, the most exciting 25 seconds in college football.
Hello and welcome inside Studio C of the Clemson Athletics Branding Institute. My name is Ross Taylor and welcome to Two Right Turns, a Clemson football podcast. I say Studio C, but today it might as well be the front office as we're joined by members of Clemson's player personnel group. So if you all wouldn't mind introducing your name, title, and how long you've been at Clemson.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan Sorrells, General Manager. I'm in my 11th year.
Kevin Kelly, Director of Player Acquisition and Evaluation. I've been here for a couple months.
So a little different in how long you've been here. So we're going to start with the new guy. Jordan, we'll get to you in a minute. But Kevin, you know, I would like for you to share a little bit of your background, but there's going to be two natural questions, I think, for everybody who've seen your addition and you joining this program. Coming off of 20-plus years in NFL player personnel circles, touch a little bit on your background, but then answer the two things that I think are on everyone's mind, which is why Clemson and why now?
Okay, sure. It's 24 years in the league. The last 12 with the Chargers as Director of College Scouting. Before that, it was the Colts. I was there during the Manning era, the Jets for a year, and the Browns for 8 years. Before that, I was coaching for 12 years. I coached in college where I played at Indiana in the Big Ten and some Division III programs. And then I was a high school head coach in Chicago, where I'm from. Why Clemson? Why now? I feel like pro ball, college ball has never been more similar. And, for NFL scouts, there was always just 32, director of player personnel, GM jobs in the world. And with the changes in college football, it's like there's probably at least 40 or so Power 4 schools. So I think that in a time for a change, 25 years being an NFL college scout is a lot of time on the road, and I needed a change. And why Clemson? It was just my favorite program, place to visit, the people, the area, head coach, players. I felt like we drafted Mike Williams, Jordan McFadden, Wade Artavis on the team. Anytime we scouted players here, it was easy. They were, mature, life skills, new football, were clean mentally. It was just easy scouting. They always kind of came through for us, assimilated quickly into an NFL team. I felt like this was one of the few true AAA programs for an NFL franchise. And so, it was just a matter if it would ever happen, and it did. So, I'm glad I made the decision.
When you talk about the speed with which Clemson players have assimilated into NFL locker rooms, it seems like you've assimilated here very quickly, and it's been fun having your voice and kind of different perspective. And so I'm curious whether you want to talk about it generally or even in a position-specific way. What is the process of evaluating players, and how different is it trying to evaluate a high school prospect to the college level compared to from the college level to the NFL?
Yeah, I don't think it's any different. I was a high school coach and at a private school in Chicago, so I recruited middle school players and had recruited when I was coaching in college. And so, just different age groups, maturity levels. The sport doesn't change. So, I've enjoyed watching the high school players. And when you're an NFL college scout, I mean, you talk to high school coaches, you watch high school film. I mean, there's players that just don't have a lot of college film, and you need a certain volume to really have an understanding of a player. So it really isn't much different, and you just try to be a team guy and assimilate to a culture and a a place that certainly has it figured out with all the championships and all the great people that are here and all the great processes they already have in place. It's really a machine, so I've just tried to fit in and do my part.
You talked about how the pro game and the college game have never been more similar, and one of the ways that has come out is a lot of teams, including Clemson, have started naming general managers and in positions where might have previously have been a director of recruiting or a chief of staff or things like that. And Jordan, your title changed to that this past off season, and I'm just curious, as the college landscape continues to change, what does being a general manager entail? What does that title mean to you? And does it feel like it's a new role, or does it just feel like an extension of what you've done so successfully for the last decade?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it feels like an extension of what we've been doing, certainly with some differences and some changes and some added factors and things that we go through. But in general, I mean, the mission is still the same, right? It's to put the best roster that we can put together and continue to build a program, right? And that's always been Coach's his mindset, and I very much align with him on that. That it's not about building a team year to year, but it's about building and sustaining a program over the long term. And so that's still the focus. And as long as Coach is here, that's going to continue to be the focus for us. Is we've got the benefit certainly of a really established culture, and that's a luxury, I think, in today's world. We're not trying to build that through a bunch of portal kids and acquisitions and trying to turn over a roster. We have that established, and so but things have changed certainly for me, and in regards to the financial piece of things, and that certainly factors in to a great degree now, and decision making. It factors in with your current players and with player acquisition, and so all that I think kind of combines and puts me in a position to have an impact, which is fun. But we have a great team of people here, and it is it's not a one-man job, I'll tell you that. And so adding Kevin to the mix, but what we have with our recruiting staff and what we have, from our coaching staff and our head coach all the way down, I think we're very much aligned in the mission and what we want to try to accomplish. And so I'm excited for the future. And I can tell you this: I've learned more in the last year than I probably have in the previous 10 combined. And so that's been fun because I feel like I'm being challenged in ways that I've never been challenged for some time.
Well, it's been fun to watch too, because nothing has caught you off guard or blindsided you. I mean, you've been able to see ahead, and some of this is having Coach Sweeney, who has conversations at the highest levels, our Director of Athletics, Graham Neff, both of whom are very plugged in on the national landscape. You gathering expertise as this has started to come around from others around the country, NFL teams. Obviously, we've talked about the added expertise to your right. And so it's been really interesting to watch that all evolve as you gather all that information. Kevin, I want to come back to you because you talked about how this is truly one of the AAA programs for an NFL team coming in. You've been all over the country. You've met all these college head coaches. I mean, that you lived and breathed that for several decades. As an outsider, what stood out to you about Clemson? And now that you've seen it from the inside, how has your perspective on that changed?
Well, the success stands out. I mean, I always say in a draft room, you can have your own opinion, but not your own facts. So, I mean, the championships, the sustained success, the type of players, just the program that's been built by Jordan and Coach Sweeney, it just kind of speaks for itself. And then, what's so different here and unique is the holistic approach to development of a young man in a college program. It is unique. So they graduate, they get real degrees, they have high grade point averages. It still blows me away that we have 98 guys with a 3.0 and 20 with a 4.0. It's just those are amazing numbers. I just don't have guys getting in trouble. There's maturity, there's life skills, there's everything you want in a locker room. Anybody would want in any organization, really. It's been better. It's been better than I thought. I come here. You visit a college program. You're basically a private investigator for the day, and you talk to all the people about the players. You don't talk to the players. They're in class. They're in meetings. They're lifting weights. They're going to practice. So, you're trying to just put together who it is, the person, the player is, the person. You know, I would say, like, if it was just football, that job would be easy. You just sit behind a desk and watch film all day. But, you know, the reason we travel for 9 months is to find out all of the intangible things that make a person tick and are the key to a team. So, you know, when you come to Clemson, those things were just easy to scout. You didn't have to worry about things you did at other places. And it's been better than that. I've just been just so amazed at all the people here, the infrastructure, it's just like a machine, recruiting weekends, everything we do, this team right here for a show like this, operations, Jordan's whole team in recruiting, the coaching staff, it's an all-star staff, many men that have been head coaches around the country I know well. You know, I mean, Chris Rumpf, we drafted his son to the Chargers. You know, Nick Eason, I was with the Browns when we brought him to the Browns as a player 20 years ago. Tom Allen, you know, I played football at Indiana a long time. He's a good friend of mine, former high school head coach, Tom Allen. So, yeah, just a lot of good ties to the whole staff. And just being around all the people, I feel like every day I meet somebody else that's just amazing, that's great at their job, just part of the team, you know, doing a great job for Clemson football.
He bought an orange house too.
Yeah, so, that's all in.
He's
right
all he is.
All
He's all in very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Kevin, I'm very curious about this because I think the outside perception of the NFL. Look, there's no more cutthroat business than the National Football League, and I think the outside opinion is, who cares as long as they can run, block, tackle, whatever it may be. And you've spent a lot of time talking about life skills, grade point averages, intangibles. And Coach Sweeney likes to say, how you do anything is how you do everything. Why does that truly matter to NFL evaluators?
Well, Coach Sweeney's right about that. And, you know, it's just you're building a team, so everybody's got to function like a team. Pro ball was just different because we paid the players, now college ball, you know, so you're merging some of the evaluation with their valuation. But it still comes down to, you know, a locker room and a team and functioning that way. So all those intangible things, I just feel like a football team, like any organization, it's what you would want out of people you work with, you know, their team attitude, you know, their mental toughness, their competitiveness, you know, how bad they wanted to win, have success. They were, you know, they could put the team in front of their own personal situation. You know, that's how any organization is successful in a team, regardless of the sport, isn't any different, really. And so the NFL, you know, when I worked for Bill Polian, he was probably my biggest mentor in the NFL, the Colts. And that was really the difference. Those Colts teams that had that amazing run during Manning's era, I mean, they were just built of players like that were made of the right stuff and would react properly to adversity. You know, I call the NFL the adversity league. It's an 8-8 league. I mean, you know, Ross, I mean, you've been in the league. You know, you can lose 6 games and win the world title. So you're gonna have adversity, and so you have to have people that react properly. And so, you know, Bill was never tempted by concerns with football character and character. Those players were removed off the board. And at the other teams, they were moved down. And he used to say all the time, you know, the player doesn't change if you draft him in the 7th round. So when we'd lose a game, we wouldn't lose 2 because there wasn't any finger pointing. You know, it was just pointing the thumb. And we'd circle the wagons and we'd get back on track. And that was the key to those teams winning 12, 13, 14 games every year.
Yeah, and I forget the exact quote, but Bill Walsh said something to the effect of culture doesn't get tacked on as an afterthought. And it sounds exactly like what you're talking about.
Right.
Jordan, I mean, while we've got you here, I mean, we have to talk big picture a little bit because the landscape of college athletics seems to just change tectonically, like almost every minute, every hour. And obviously, most notably, name, image, and likeness, revenue sharing. You know, I with everything potentially coming down the line with the settlement in the House case in April, I'd like for you, if you can, to just kind of walk us through the landscape a little bit and give our audience an overview primarily of the 2 probably biggest topics out there, which are name, image, and likeness and revenue sharing. What are they? And perhaps most importantly, what kind of opportunities do they offer Clemson football and its players?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's sort of a loaded one, right? I mean, and to your point, I think one of the challenges, but one of the exciting things about the last few years, it does feel like you come into the office every day and you're trying to figure out, okay, what are today's rules and what are today's guidelines, because it has changed so much. But I think ultimately it's been a real positive here for our guys. One, because I do think we're uniquely equipped because of how we focused on the development of our players. We're really equipped to be able to help them maximize the opportunities, right? Financially, yes, certainly, but I think taking these opportunities and the financial gain that they're currently benefiting from, and really being able to maximize that for the long term. That's always been a priority for us in everything that we've done. And so we've just sort of added the financial piece on top of that. So that's been pretty cool. But we've got a really healthy collective. And so the collective has really been a huge part of what we've done. 110 Society and C.D. Davies and Ben Satcher and Andrew Smart and the team there and what they've done and how they've been able to come alongside us and really help us, create and sustain a successful organization and NIL operation. That's been critical. And so the NIL piece and what we've been operating in for the last few years is really, built upon commercial opportunities. It's built upon guys really endorsing products or endorsing companies, those type of things, and in conjunction with collectives, right? And collectives have served a pretty unique purpose in college athletics, and ours has been no different. And we've been successful there, and for the foreseeable future, at least, we're going to continue to operate with a healthy collective, and we'll see how some of that plays out here over the next few months and years. As the House case gets settled, and some of the settlement items get agreed upon and actually implemented. So we'll see where that lands. And then you add in the revenue share piece, which to me I think we're really, really excited about. I give Graham Neff a ton of credit, our board a ton of credit for the way that they've approached this. They've approached it, I think, in a really thoughtful way. They've approached it with some patience, which I'd be lying. It can be has been frustrating at times, but I think standing where we are today with the operation that we have, the philosophy that we have, and the patience that we've had in the process, I think we're really well positioned for a lot of success in the future. And so, I'm excited about that. But, as the case gets settled in mid-April, we're going to learn a lot more about how rev share will actually play out. But, you hear the number of $20.5 million being kind of the budget and all that. And so there's certainly nuances to it. And there's, that's not a football budget. That's a departmental budget. And so those dollars are going to get allocated across the department. And so we're learning kind of along with everybody else about how that's actually going to play out. But in the end, I mean, it's licensing agreements between the university and the student athlete, and so there's still an NIL component to it. There's still assets and quid pro quo that those guys are going to need to do as a part of that. But I think it streamlines the process quite a bit more for us, which I think is really important, and not just for us. I think it streamlines the process for the entire sport, right? For all of us to be able to make, I think, more sound decisions, and really to give us some discipline within the structure and the framework of the roster building process. That it's not just, okay, we go out and just throw a bunch of money out and we just keep adding on to it. But it does, I think, evaluation becomes so critical. Evaluation and development, I don't think, have ever been more important in college football. And luckily for us, those are the two things that I think we've done really, really well for a long period of time. And so that's why I'm so excited to have Kevin on board, because I think he's brought an added element for us of veteran leadership, veteran presence, but he knows what he's doing, and he's done this for a long, long time. And so we have some folks that I think are really fitting in well with Kevin. I think Kevin's fitting in great and giving us just good insight into how the process should work, because again, for the first time ever, it's not just a single evaluation with a single choice, right? Forever it's been, we like the guy, do we offer him or do we not, right? That's been the single choice for the last however many years this has operated. Well, now that turns into, okay, we offer him, yeah, we like him, or even with your roster, everybody has evaluation on them And so it's really important for us that our evaluation process is very closely connected to the valuation process, because at the end of the day, what I've told all the guys on our roster as I've had these conversations with them is we're going to be as honest and transparent with you as we can be all along the way. And so those are big boy business conversations. And so I love the idea of our players really receiving like a real world education on this is how this stuff works, right? And so every player in our team room is going to tell you, I want to play in the NFL, which is awesome. And we want that. We want to recruit players that have aspirations to play at the next level. And so they're getting some real world application. They get inundated with it. They get to experience what a contract negotiation is like. They get to experience how to go out and maximize brand opportunities with true commercial NIL deals. And all that's been a huge positive for us. And our players have done a phenomenal job. They've represented themselves. They've represented Clemson and their families the right way. And that's been a lot of fun to watch. And to be honest, like when we have closed the deal and we've kind of like, hey, we've agreed upon contracts and those kind of things, it's been a celebration, and that's been a lot of fun. And that's something that I've really enjoyed, being able to be a part of blessing these guys and rewarding the efforts that they've put forth in the field and otherwise. That's been pretty neat. There's been, I think, an excitement kind of radiating off of you, but it's been palpable kind of throughout the entire building from the head coach on down, that the model is adapting to reward players, but do it in a way in which academic and scholastic focus is not going away, which I know was a big piece for everyone around here. Yeah, and that's going to be a piece for Coach as long as we're here. And ultimately, when you hear him speak, and Kevin got to hear kind of his program meeting as he really kind of dove in with some recruits, which the notorious, infamous program meeting, the notorious one. But I still remember the first time I heard that. And it's one of those, everybody knows it's long, and it gets talked about as it's a long meeting, and it is. It's long, but the feedback that we get on that meeting, just the way Coach is able to cast his vision, and now with just the added element of finance, it continues to fit and work. But as long as he's here, education and development are still going to be the number one priority. And this is just a part of that. It's a part of the education and overall development of these guys. And that's why I think, we're, again, uniquely positioned for success in this, because we do still value the human aspect of this, right? It's not just, okay, you're number 10 and you can catch passes or you can make tackles. That's all great, and that certainly provides opportunity for you, but there's a lot more to you and to your story than just what you can do on a football field. Well, and you talk about how it's basically all folded into the existing mission. So how exciting has it been for you to see Clemson fans continue to buy into that, where it matters the type of people that we're producing here, in addition to giving them all of the opportunities that are now becoming available in this new landscape? And on top of that is the current team and roster and the group we've put together now, as well as the very palpable excitement for the recruiting class that's starting to come together. Does that, like you said, just kind of show, or is it some kind of proof of concept that Clemson remains positioned to thrive in the new era? Yeah, I think without a doubt it does. I mean, we have, arguably the most experienced roster in the country coming back next year. And it's not just experience, it's experience and it's talented, which in turn means it's expensive. Those things, when you have talent and experience, those tend to cost money. And so I give a ton of credit again to Graham and to our board and even President Clements, like the way that they've wrapped their arms around this and have been able to adapt to a new landscape, and to our fan base, who has been generous. They've provided opportunities, and they've given us the resources that we need to go compete and ultimately retain what we believe is a championship caliber roster. And so, we're second in the country in retention over the last 5 years, and so those dots are pretty easy to connect, right? You don't finish second in retention year over year without paying your guys fair market value, right? And being able to provide opportunity to them on the financial side of things too. And so we've got to continue to do that. We've got to continue to invest, and our fan base, I think, again, has bought into that. And I'm extremely appreciative, especially as we went through that round of getting everybody under contract right after the season was over. I could take a few deep breaths of like, okay, hey, we're good. We have the resources that we need to be able to retain this roster, and being able to do that and return all the players that we returned with Cade Klubnik and TJ Parker and Peter Woods and Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Two, 3, and 4 year starters at tackle. Like those guys cost money. And for us to be able to retain them and not have to go out to the portal and seek them all out because we've had a bunch of guys leave, that matters a ton. And from Kevin's perspective, right, like if you look at the NFL, there's continuity on the best teams, right? Like rarely does a free agent filled team go and be successful. Maybe a year, but to be able to do that year over year is really, really hard. And so we value continuity a ton. And so for us to be able to have the resources to go and provide continuity to our coaching staff and to a head coach who are really, really good at what they do. And they're even better when they have a roster with a lot of continuity.
Well, and I think Kevin would probably say this too, from my understanding from the NFL, a lot of times if you're having to go free agent heavy, it means you probably missed on the evaluations in the draft. And you were talking about the valuations and the evaluations of guys coming in. And obviously Kevin is no stranger to, you come from a world where you're placing 7 to 8 figure valuations on folks that are coming in, and you're working for relatively wealthy human beings who don't like giving away money for no reason and are looking for return on that. But it kind of brings me to my next topic. I'm sure there are plenty of listeners of this podcast who, like me growing up or what, may have been Madden franchise dorks or NCAA dynasty mode dorks where you're talking about roster building. And for so long in college football, you could just kind of stockpile. But now it's a little more similar to the NFL where it's asset allocation, right? And you've got to figure out kind of where to place that value and how to stockpile and project ahead and find value and all those kinds of things. How valuable is your experience in that world? What kind of insight have you provided? And Jordan, what kind of value have you taken from that?
Well, the NFL football decisions dictate cap decisions. So when Jordan and I talk about it in the whole staff, the coaching staff, it's still a football decision, and a player's value that he has. I mean, there's certainly premium positions that can change a little bit based on the coaching staff and their systems of football, but, it's essentially the quarterback and the people that directly affect them. So, I mean, that's in a nutshell how NFL teams are built. They're built in the NFL draft. You supplement in free agency, but you just go through the history of the Super Bowls. They were all built in the draft. So that's high school recruiting, in college football always has been. The portal now is essentially pro free agency in the NFL. And you got to be careful in pro free agency because NFL teams don't get rid of good players on purpose. All right, they know something you don't typically. You get a rare occasion when it's strictly a money decision, which happens in the league with the cap when you probably drafted real well and you just can't afford to keep them all. So, which is something Clemson has had to deal with, will deal with because they do a great job here. But yeah, I mean it's you see how the two levels of football are merging. I mean, I've been a proponent for paying the entertainers that are college football, even before I played a long time ago. So I just think it's great what's happened and hope it continues to go the direction it's gone.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say, from my perspective, again, having Kevin here, like it's been so good for me to just sit and listen and learn from him because I will say, I mentioned what I've learned over the last few years, but I've spoken with a lot of folks. I certainly didn't go into this thinking I got the answers, like we got this thing figured out, right? And so I've talked to a ton of folks and have talked to some GMs at the NFL level, but to have a guy like Kevin with his experience in the building every day, who is not afraid to speak his mind, and I can't say how important that has been for us, just to have an objective set of eyes on our roster, on the players that we're recruiting. There are times where you fall in love with a guy because you know everything about the guy. And so there's a tendency probably to overlook maybe some deficiencies on the field because of how you feel about him personally. And so for Kevin, I think coming in and really having a football mindset of, hey, I'm going to come evaluate the football. And he's getting to know these guys too. I think he's done an awesome job of getting to know our players, which is certainly a huge part of the evaluation too. But to have him here has really provided me, I think, an education in the evaluation process, just the depth of it at the NFL level. And, they've got the benefit of time and travel that we're very limited in. We have limited time to go travel and seek out information. And so we've got to really maximize that time when our coaches are out on the road. And coaches get pulled in a lot of different directions too. And they aren't just scouts. I mean, they're trying to coach players and worry about a position room, and they've got 1,000 things on their mind. And so, again, for us to be able to, I think, build out a more robust system, structure, staff has been a critical piece for us, and will be even more so moving forward.
That is a big difference between college and pro ball, is that the coaches on this level are the ones that travel and recruit. And in pro football, it's the total opposite. They don't do any of that until the season is completely over. A coach's first experience with players evaluating them is typically the combine. And, it's people like myself, scouting staffs that spend 9 months on the road. I'm a former college coach, high school coach, so I know that's Thursday nights, Fridays, game day. You've had recruits, college coaches in the building wanting to see players. But NFL college scouts, you travel 7 days a week. You hit a school a day, hit games, so it's nonstop. So that's a big difference. That's a big difference for me so far, is giving my evaluation just on a player off film, not really knowing the player, and it's uncomfortable because I don't feel like I've fully scouted them, and I'm really uneasy about giving my opinion on a person when I really don't know them yet. But it's just an adjustment period, and I like a lot. We had our elite retreat, and that was great because so you get to talk to players, interact with their parents and stuff. We interviewed some of them, and that was different because their family was in the room. It wasn't just me and a player talking. So
that was a pretty unique experience. Though we've started doing some of that, and I think. I've really enjoyed watching Kevin he's like a pig in mud, just sitting in an interview room, right? And doing some, mock combine style interviews, I think has been cool. But it's given me some insight into Kevin's process and how he's operated for the last 20 years. But two, I think it's been impactful for the players as well, to experience that and have a little bit of like, hey, this is some inside baseball on like, this is how the combine works and this is what we do there and this is what you're going to experience. But two, I've really appreciated his willingness to just dive in and get to know guys. There's no hesitation there. And I think, from an evaluation mindset, that's critical to our success. Because I think, we're all evaluators in some way, shape, or form, everybody in the organization. And as you get to know players, you may hear something different. They may say something different to you, Ross, than they'll say to me or they'll say to Kevin and vice versa. And so I think we're all gathering information, trying to learn as much as we can about these guys because ultimately, for us, because we're not a big portal and cycling in and out type of team, our initial evaluation is critically important. Because, to Coach's point, he still says this, even in today's world, it's till graduation do we part. And so when we bring a guy in, our commitment to him is not we'll see how this works out for a year. Our commitment is you're here and you're going to get your degree. And if we screwed the evaluation up, that's on us. That's not on you. Yeah. And so it's really important that we do the due diligence, that we spend the time, that we get to know them. And so I've enjoyed watching Kevin kind of take that role. We had a kid here yesterday on campus, and I walked out on the practice field, and man, Kevin is like joined at the hip. And so I think, he's done such a good job of getting to know them. But two, it's not lost on me that I'm able to tell a kid, hey, that guy worked in the NFL for 20 years. Like that's what he does. It's what he does professionally. And so they kind of go, oh, really? And that's been an added benefit for us, certainly.
Yeah, maybe we can get a banner of the empty field at Lucas Oil Stadium up in Jordan's office and decorate it like a suite to make you feel a little more at home. You mentioned, too, kind of the differences in travel and everything, which this is not so much a question as much as I think we both need to give a shout-out. College coaches' wives and NFL scout wives are saints for the amount of time that people in those two industries spend on the road. So you all do not have to offer any insight there other than I think it's important that we say that because it is truly unbelievable the amount of time that's spent on the road and away from families.
Yeah, it's a grind. Marriott keeps track of the night you stay in their hotels. And I stay in various hotels in college campuses, but I've stayed in the Marriott over 2,700 nights in my life, 25 years. It's like 7 years of my life. So that part of it's embarrassing. It's hard. The road is a grind. I mean, that's no joke. It's a lot of driving, a lot of college towns. There's no airports around. And, a normal day for a scout is it's changed during my career because the video has gotten so much better. When I started, it was SVHS tapes, and then with the DVDs, and then things became digital.
You've been around a while, Kevin.
VHS. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I was a GA in Indiana, it was 16 millimeter film. So I've seen the whole gamut. But you get to a football building 7, 8 in the morning because you got to watch 5 hours of film. You're talking at least 3 games on offense, 3 games on defense, 3 games special teams. You're looking at a program like Clemson, 25 players that you got to do full reports on. And then you got to still meet with everybody, trainers, strength coaches, position coaches, academics, anybody that operations, anybody that can, the person the coach that recruited the player that knows something about his support system. And then you got to go to practice, watch a player, see him physically, watch him compete, watch him be coached. And you got to get around the field to see all those players. Then usually you wait around because there's a coach or two you haven't talked to. And now it's 7 o'clock, and you got a 4-hour drive in front of you, and you haven't done a report. And you got to do 25, 30 of them, and they take an hour. And you got to be at the next football building tomorrow morning at 7. And, you're a visitor every day you do your job. So parking on college campuses is tough, right? You don't have a parking pass. Your finger doesn't work at the front door. It doesn't work at any door. You're a visitor. I mean, it's a challenging deal, really. So this has been amazing for me to come to work every day in the same building. And, I'm still staying in a hotel, so it still feels like I'm on like an extended visit to Clemson. But it'll set in once we get into our new house.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Jordan, one thing that stuck out to me that I thought was cool and noteworthy is you were talking about discussions and agreements around revenue sharing. So you talked about them being a celebration. And I think one of the things that's been cool to see around here, and I don't know if this is just a public misperception or if it carries elsewhere, that players might just be shaking schools by the ankles trying to get every dime out of them, and that all the money is going to get blown on fancy toys that go fast or whatever it may be. And we've seen just so much gratitude, the transformational change, the opportunity that these guys are getting, working with financial advisors to start compounding now to set themselves up for the future. Seems like it's been really rewarding. What were those moments like, and kind of your takeaways from the first round of revenue sharing discussions?
Yeah, it was a grind, certainly. And when we got back from Texas, I guess we got back at like 3 a.m. and that was Saturday night or Sunday morning, and we were in the office at 11 on Sunday and had our first conversation with a player at noon. And so it happened quickly and got things going. But I will say I was struck by, and I shared this with our athletic director and our board. I was struck by the impact of Clemson on these guys, the relationships that they have here, the development that they've received, but the way that they feel valued and cared for, it matters a ton. It really does. And so when guys have to make decisions, and they all have decisions to make every year, right? I mean, there's unlimited free agency in our sport, and so they have the option to leave. And for the most part, any player at any school that has produced on the field, he can go in the portal and he can just say, "Hey, I'm open for business, and what are you going to give me?" Right? And that's not true for just Clemson players. That's true for any player around the country. And so you certainly see some guys do that and maximize that opportunity. But what I think really struck me was our players value Clemson, and they value who we are. They value the people here, and they really want to be here. And that meant a lot to me and was impactful to me as I had a lot of those discussions. And so there really was a desire to remain at Clemson. I had very few, if any, conversations where I was like, "Yeah, I'm probably going to leave, but what can you guys do for me?" Right? That was never the tenor of the conversation. It was always, I want to stay. I want to be a part of this. And so, there's an understanding with our players of, we're trying to build a team, and it's not just about one guy. And so we certainly had guys that understood that, and I think understood the bigger picture of how we wanted to, again, build a roster and a program and continue to have success. And I really appreciated that about our players, that it wasn't just about them, but that they had concern for and care for teammates, and wanting to make sure that, they were opportunity kind of across the board for some other guys. And that was pretty cool to see. But again, like, for us to be able to retain some of our best players, Antonio was a really interesting example, because his was really an NFL decision, right? He was considering the NFL, and so in our conversations with him, that was one where it was like cut a backflip off the table, because we got Antonio back, and that was a lot of fun, and I got a great appreciation for Antonio. I told him this in the process, but I thought his mindset, the questions that he asked, the thoughtfulness of his approach, and just the way he went about it in a very businesslike manner, but was very open and transparent with us about kind of where he was step by step. It was really impressive to me. And again, I think just speaks to his development, his growth here at Clemson, and what we were have been able to witness over the last 3 years. But there were certainly a few where, like, hey, we got that done. Let's go. Like, Blake Miller was another one, who had an NFL decision to make, and to get Blake back. Again, that is an added benefit of where we are from a revenue share and NIL perspective, is those NFL decisions that in the past would have probably been fairly simple, where they just say, well, I'm going to the NFL, right? I'm ready. I've put 3 years in. I can go now. I'm going to go. We've got the ability to make those really tough decisions, just because of the financial opportunity here in college now too. And so I really enjoyed being able to go through that and experience it with our players, and the celebration was a lot of fun. And for a few of those guys, having those conversations, when you're dealing with some agents, you don't always get to talk to the player a ton through the process. And so when we finally got through it with a couple of guys that we were able to get done, making those phone calls and having those FaceTimes and seeing family around in the celebration was really cool. And I'll tell you too, like, talking to the parents afterwards, and being able to compliment them and just show our appreciation for their continued belief and trust in us, that was pretty unique. And again, I think the appreciation that they have in turn for us, and for the investment that the Clemson community is making in their sons, it meant a lot. And that was a neat experience.
Well, and what a great opportunity to have yet another tool to create transformational change in the lives of the young men in our program.
No question. And when we heard that, right? I mean, from a couple of players that said, as we were sort of wrapping things up, like, this is life-changing for me. And so, again, it's not just let me get mine, right? Which I think that's probably the perception in some places, or from some folks, that's what this is all about. But it's not. It's not. It's certainly not here at Clemson. It's different. And our guys have had a great appreciation for the investment that Clemson's making. I don't think they take that lightly, right? It's not just, well, we deserve this, but it's, man, this is transformational for us now. And so, again, for us to be able to come alongside them in the wealth management piece of this, and provide them a leg up for whenever that football career is over, because the one sure thing in all of this is it will end at some point. And so we want to make sure that they're set up and able to, maximize the current opportunity, but use the current opportunity to set yourself up for a lifetime of success. And they have a really unique opportunity to do that in ways that most of their peers across campus don't have.
Well, we've gotten a great kind of behind-the-curtain, in-depth look at a lot of things, but we got to take a quick pit stop, courtesy of our friends at Darlington Raceway, and we're going to play a little Fast Facts game. And here in a minute, we'll have Joe Robbins put 60 seconds on the screen. But what we want to do, so Kevin, if I have it right, you joined the Chargers prior to the 2013 season, right? So 12 seasons.
Correct.
With the San Diego turned Los Angeles Chargers.
Yep.
Well, in those 12 years that you were with the Chargers, 97 different players from Clemson played at least one regular season NFL game, and 11 of those guys played at least 100. Now, so think about the math a little bit. I mean, you'd have to be out for several years with a 16 to 17 game regular season to approach 100. But in a second, we're going to start a 60-second timer, and I just want to know collectively how many of those 11 Clemson players played 100-plus regular season games in the NFL from 2013 through 2024. I'll give you all a second to think about it before we start.
You want the names of the players?
Yes. Yeah, and this is probably going to be more for Jordan having been here.
No, we got this.
Yeah. I think collectively y'all are good. I mean, obviously you know the league, you know kind of the timeline around here. So I tell you what.
There's only 11.
There's only 11.
Oh, I said so. There's 11 that we're searching
There
for.
are 11. I made
Okay.
it tough, especially with the timer, because I know if I gave y'all carte blanche, you'd knock it out. I'll let you start with the first because there's one you should darn sure get, and as soon as you say that one, we can go with the timer because there's one you drafted.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, number one. Joe, start the timer. We've got 10 more.
Sammy Watkins,
Nuke Hopkins,
Cavell Connor.
not Cavell.
Yeah, we had Cavell, but
And a lot of his games would have predated that, I think.
That's a lot of games.
I can give you positions too.
Bradley Pinion.
Good.
Yeah, give me some more positions.
Pinion had a teammate for several years. Grady Jarrett, 152.
AJ hasn't reached that yet.
Not
right?
yet.
Okay.
The all-time games played leader for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Tyler Shatley.
Yep. Defensive tackle and pitcher at Clemson.
DJ Reader.
yeah, good call.
Defensive end from nearby.
Shaq Lawson.
There's a safety.
J-Ron
Curse, 119. I tell you what, we'll go into overtime. There's only two names remaining. Cornerback left here after a couple years.
Byron Maxwell.
Nope. A lot of his games would have predated the 13 cut off.
Tankersley.
Not Tankersley. Someone I worked with for several years.
Who in Washington? Who was a corner from Clemson in Washington, Kevin? You should know this.
Later Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Bashad
Breeland. And then someone who I think is probably perhaps the most underrated or overlooked member of our wide receiver U lineage at 101 games.
Adam Humphries.
Nope, not Adam.
It wasn't.
Jerron Brown.
Wow.
Jerron Brown. So, 11 players that during your time with the Chargers from Clemson played 100-plus
That's
NFL
amazing.
regular season game, which is an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, it really is.
And especially, we were talking about a guy like Shatley, who's a defensive lineman here, who took a chance on playing O-line. And in the history of the Jacksonville Jaguars, no one has ever played more games for that franchise.
That was a good
than him.
evaluation by somebody at Clemson. It wasn't me. I wasn't here yet, but that was a really good evaluation.
Hey, Darlington Raceway, I was there a year ago. I have a son who works in NASCAR for Hendrick Motorsports. So
there you go.
Great
Synergy.
place.
Yeah, and we had folks from Team Penske out here scouting our guys at Pro Day, and I know that got a lot of attention. We got a lot of guys who were crushing it in NASCAR. So
Josh Watson, actually, this morning, we were just talking about Business Week in Las Vegas, and the guys went and had a visit with NASCAR, got to go to the race in Vegas, sit on pit road. So that was a cool experience for about 15 of our players going out there.
Yeah, we've got a lot of alignment in the auto racing world now, and we really appreciate Darlington Raceway being a part of the Two Right Turns experience. That segment was presented by Darlington Raceway. Be a part of the track's 75th anniversary and the official throwback weekend of NASCAR. Log on to darlingtonraceway.com for your tickets to the track that's too tough to tame. It's fun for everyone. Now, back to Two Right Turns. To kind of get back to what we were talking about before that, one of the things that obviously is important to us here, this is a relationship-driven place, driven from the head coach on down with Coach Sweeney. Jordan is someone who has helped shape this, and Kevin as someone who is just starting to experience it from the inside with fresh eyes. Why do you think Clemson has been able to excel at relationship building in the recruiting process and into their college experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think primarily because it's been such a priority for Coach Sweeney. I think for the most part, like he's hired a lot of people who value what he values, and he's made an emphasis and day after day after day, like we continue to talk about how important relationships are. And in a world, again, where, there is free agency continuously, those relationships have never been more important for guys to understand that they are cared for and valued. But he's prioritized it. And I think if you look at any great organization, whatever the leader of the organization prioritizes and emphasizes and makes important day after day is going to be pretty important. And so he's done that. And but most of all, he's hired really good people and really good coaches and staff. And it's not just our position coaches. We've got a big staff, but we've got a big staff of a lot of people who really are relational just by nature. And so that's been, I think, the driving factor of this whole thing. But at the end of the day, like, this deal is all about people. It really is, right? Like, even the evaluation is really, it's about people, because you can have a ton of talent and a ton of ability, but if you're not made of the right stuff and you're not the right person, it's really hard to be successful for any extended period of time, right? You may find your way and have a little success along the way, but to sustain success takes a certain type of character.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I feel like he does an amazing job of merging championship football and a college experience that we all want. When we're in college, being a part of a campus and being a real student, and just experience Clemson University, like all of us, went to college and experienced our college campus. So, and I think probably some of that, Coach Sweeney is a walk-on at Alabama who earned a ride, and I did the same thing in Indiana. I was a walk-on, earned a ride. And when you're a walk-on, you're there, you're going through the college experience as a student without, all of the benefits of being a scholarship player. So I think that experience, I'm sure it's helped them in wanting that for the players to have both. It's not just about championship football and ignoring those other things, or not paying them attention, or just having them not be the priority that football is. He's balanced it for the players, and the players obviously appreciate that. And it's like Jordan has said, just the resources that are here, the people that serve the players. I mean, the players feel that and see it.
And so I don't want to beat a dead horse on retention, but you mentioned about the team we have coming back, the retention numbers we have. Well, actually, my old friend Bill Connolly at ESPN, his numbers have shown Clemson leads the country in returning production for this year. The success and focus that Clemson has had on retention, how critical is retention to the Clemson strategy? And do you see the benefits showing up, particularly when you have an experienced and interconnected roster like Clemson has heading into 2025?
I mean, I would say it's the most important thing for us right now in regards to roster building, is retaining the talent that you have, right? Like that's priority one, certainly. And then there's an acquisition piece to it, right? We have to continue to acquire talent that we then want to retain down the road. And so it's really a two-pronged approach, but it all starts with retention. And I think retention speaks to recruiting as well. And so when you're able to point to some of those data points and point to some of those numbers in regards to, here's how many players we all have coming back, right? Here's how many players we had depart relative to all of our peers. That matters to recruits and to their families. And Clemson has never appealed to the masses of recruits, but it's appealed to the right recruits for us. And so when we start talking about retention, we're talking to people who value continuity, they value relationships, they value development, they value who we are. And so those things resonate with them, I think, pretty deeply in regards to their decision-making process. And so, yeah, it's critically important. But I think if you look across college football, I give Ohio State a ton of credit this past year because they acquired some pieces in the portal, certainly, but what they did a great job of last year with their roster was they retained the right players. And so as we look across and we study other teams and study what's happening across the landscape, I really believe, and Kevin, you may disagree, but I mean, to me, retention of good players and retention of talent is going to lead to success far more often than not.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, when I was with the Chargers, we went to the playoffs with 4 different head coaches. It's challenging to do. Yeah. Because a lot of times you throw good players out with the bathwater, but Justin Herbert, we re-signed him. Mike Williams, we re-signed him. Derwin James, re-signed him. Joey Bosa, we re-signed him, and we drafted properly and got it right, and re-sign those players, and that's the key to success. Those Colts teams I referenced, the fans of the Colts would always give Bill some grief that we weren't more active in pro free agency, and his answer all the time was, "We are. We just sign our own guys back to contracts. We're not signing other people's players."
That sounds like Coach Swinney.
Yeah. So and those were, that was 10 banners in a row. 2 of them are Super Bowls. So, the man has a gold jacket for a reason. So it's the way to do it. No question. I just completely agree.
We could do an entirely separate podcast that's nothing more than just things you learned from Bill Polian, things you learned from Howard Schnellenberger in your year at Miami.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. And I don't think we're gonna have time to get into it, but we may have to have you back to talk about your old workout and training partner, Sweetness himself, Walter Payton, who I know you were close to. So we may have to have you back on that. But right now we need to go to the mailbag because we opened it up to our audience. They had a couple questions for you, and the first one I think is a great one for both of you as talent evaluators. Would you rather have a guy with elite game film and average measurables, or vice versa?
You can take that one first, Kevin. That's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, elite game film. You got to play the game, and measurables. They're not winning games. So
that's a question that we get a lot, right? As we talk to young players or even kids that come to camp and they want to know, what can I do? What can I do to get recruited? And I'm like, go play great football. Play great on Friday night. The camps and all that stuff, yeah, it all matters. But at the end of the day, if the game film's not elite, it's going to be hard to recruit that guy. It just is. And he may look like a giant, and he's a beautiful specimen when it comes to what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, you got to play, and you got to play at a really high level.
I don't think anybody in this room's ever gotten a ring for success at the NFL scouting combine, right? It's all about what goes on between the lines. Second question, this is for both of you. So Kevin, in your NFL career, Jordan, in your college career, and I don't want y'all to name a high-round pick or a high-level recruit. If you could pick one player from your career that you stood on the table for, that there maybe wasn't consensus of this guy is going to be a great player, that you stood on the table for and had a great career, that gave you some maybe validation as a talent evaluator. Is there one guy each of you could name?
Yeah, there's quite a few. You're proud of all the players you draft. Probably all the way back when I first started with the Browns. It's an undrafted player, Josh Cribbs.
Yeah.
So Josh was a option quarterback at Kent State.
Yeah.
And this was back, the NFL really struggled with mobile quarterbacks, option-type guys, dual-threat quarterbacks. So players like Josh and Antoine Randall, all those guys,
Indiana guy.
They were forced to move to another position and not play quarterback in the league, and so that's really why Josh wasn't drafted. I remember he was a 10,000-yard guy, totally. So you just knew he knew what he was doing with the football, and he was a player, and he was a big NFL body, 6'1", 215, if I remember. And so I remember, you go through the scouting cycle of the season, and you get to an all-star game, and it was the now defunct all-star game in Las Vegas. He had moved to receiver, and he'd stand in the back of the line, watch everybody do the drill, and try to get it right. And I remember interviewing him, at the Starbucks on the first floor, and your key to coming into the NFL, I told the Clemson Tigers this when I got started, is, special teams. There's only 50 guys in the roster, and, you take out the linemen or the starters and the specialists, you're down to 15 guys. And so, everybody's got to be elite on special teams. You better take pride in it. So when you're interviewing undrafted players or players you might take in a late round, you've really got to be convinced that they're going to make the team on the special teams. And this guy was a quarterback, and I remember asking him, how am I going to stand on the table for you to cover a kick in the NFL or punt? You're a quarterback. And he was like, well, Coach, I threw some interceptions. I'm like, yeah, you did. He's like, I always tackled the guy, if you watch the film. And, I went back and looked, and he was right. And he made me look good. He made the team and made a Pro Bowl as a core special teams player. And then we were finally smart enough to let him return kicks, and he made the Pro Bowls at kick returner, and had a great career for the Browns and played for a couple other teams. But it's players like that you get you're those late picks. You got to get the high ones right, or you're getting fired. It's those late guys that really make a team.
Yeah, for me, it's probably a guy on the roster now, but I think Wade Woodaz stands out to me as a guy that we ended up taking late, and I've got a buddy who was here at Clemson, he's now at Virginia, but he was down in Tampa at the time, and he called and said, "There's a kid down here that you guys need to check out." And I pulled Wade's tape up, and Wade was a safety in high school, and he was a killer. And so Coach Venables was here at the time, and I remember watching the tape going, holy smokes, like this dude can play. And we needed a backer, and he's certainly projected as that, but he's got tremendous length, but he can run, he's physical. And so that was one I was like, oh, Coach V he's gonna love this guy. And so being able to take him to Coach V, say, hey, this is a dude we got to take. And it worked out great, still working out great. So I'm hoping for him to have another big year this year. I think he's got incredible potential at the next level too. So Wade's one that I'm happy we got him. So give my buddy some credit.
Well, and there are a lot of NFL eyes on this roster for next year. I think a lot of folks are anticipating that this will be a big draft class for Clemson after the 2025 season, but we won't get into the specifics, but we know for a fact that NFL evaluators, Wade is squarely on that radar and got really, really good feedback going into this prior offseason. So excited to see what he does this year. We do have one last question. It's specifically for Jordan, and it's from Nolan Hooser. And it says, what is your go-to strategy for pickleball, and could Nolan Hooser beat you?
So I answer the second question first. Absolutely not. But for the first question, I'm more of a power player. I play aggressive. I've played with quite a few guys, and we're lucky enough to have a court here at the facility. So I tend to get out there a few times a week and get after it. But it's a great game. It's a great lifetime game. It keeps me moving around. I played earlier today. My knee is paying for it a little bit, but I'll be back. Nothing's holding me down. But Nolan could absolutely not beat me.
Nolan does not lack confidence. I think the world saw that on ABC at about 11:41 p.m. I think it was in December when he winked over at Coach Sweeney before drilling a 56-yarder. So
yeah, the difference though is if he's playing me in pickleball and he winks at me, it's over, and it's not over for me. It's over for him. Like it's going to be bad.
But we like Nolan and his confidence.
Yeah, we do like that. We do.
Yeah. It's a net good, even if perhaps it does not apply to the mailbag.
What's crazy is he keeps talking about this, but we have yet to play. So I keep telling him, I want all the smoke. I'm here for it. You tell me when you want to play. And all he wants to talk about is, when are we going to play? I'm like, let's play now. And he's not accepted my offer yet.
Well, two right turns might have to go on the road for that one when the showdown finally happens.
Let's do it.
As we start to wrap up, I would be remiss if we didn't have the talent evaluators in the room evaluate a little bit of talent for us. And so, Kevin, I want to show you a quarterback here. And as we roll the footage, just kind of let me know what you see from the quarterback, and I'll just kind of let you talk us through it.
Well, he's a lefty. He's got a quick release. He's athletic.
That's the first time anybody's ever said that, I promise.
I mean, yeah.
So the surprise might be a little bit out of the bag. The southpaw you're looking at here is one young Jordan Sorrells, quarterback at Furman, absolutely annihilating the Wofford Terriers here, by the way.
Yeah.
We just wanted to get your thoughts on what he looks like as a prospect.
He's got pocket presence. I mean, he clearly knows what he's doing. He's mobile. Look at him in the pocket. He's got vision. He's hitting the check down for a touchdown. I mean,
simple game.
I mean, it's like it's about moving the sticks and scoring touchdowns.
That was a good day. I will say that was my last career game too.
Was it really?
Yeah, we beat them like a drum. So sorry, Wofford. Sorry, not sorry. It's a rival. So
and you're winning big rivalry games. That's important.
Well, and I can help you out with your character assessment. Son of a coach, it mattered. Local kid mattered to him to play for that team. Mm-hmm. Just had future general manager written all over him, right?
Yeah. That would have been in the scouting report too.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for your kind words, Kevin. I'll pay you after this.
We got to see if we have any left under the cap for you to help them out. But thank you both so much for your time, your candor, your insight. This has been a lot of fun. As we start to wrap up, any final thoughts, any final messages for Clemson fans as we head into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think again, the continued investment is going to be important, and certainly 110 Society and the collective and their health is still critical to our success. Certainly for the foreseeable future here over these next few months, but who knows over the next couple of years. We're still sort of trying to figure all that out. But I again have a great amount of appreciation for our fan base. for our leadership and for the investment that they've put into football and allowing us to be successful. So continue to show up and continue to make Death Valley the premier college football environment, game in and game out. I can't wait to see Kevin Kelly run down the hill when we play LSU. I am stoked for that moment.
There won't be a seat in the house for that one,
no doubt.
Yeah, our fans should be fired up. This is not for that, but for this football team. I mean, Jordan and his staff, Coach Sweeney and his staff. This is an elite college football team. It's a championship roster. It's a championship team. I'm fired up to be a part of it, and our fans should be too, starting with the Tigers in Death Valley.
And spoken from a guy who knows what it looks like. So
Yeah.
Thank you both for being here. That'll wrap us up from Studio C and the Clemson Athletics Branding Institute. Make sure to like and subscribe and tune in to the next episode of Two Right Turns, a Clemson football podcast.